The sun blazed high, unyielding in its midday assault, casting waves of heat that shimmered over the sagebrush like a restless spirit. The air was dry, heavy with the scent of pine and dust, and a cicada's drone wove through the silence, a persistent hum that seemed to pulse with the land's own heartbeat. Above, a lone hawk carved lazy circles in the sky, its sharp eyes scanning for prey. On the long dirt road, where each step stirred clouds of dust, a woman struggled forward, her body propped on splintered crutches that groaned under her weight. She was 28, though her face bore the weight of years carved by pain. Her breaths came in ragged bursts, each one a testament to her stubborn endurance. Her name was Camila, a name whispered in the nearby town with sneers or not at all. At her side, a girl of 6, with honey-colored hair tangled from days without a brush, clutched her mother's sleeve, trying to steady her. A boy, barely 4, trailed behind, tugging at the hem of her skirt, his cheeks flushed red from the sun's relentless glare. They moved as one, a small, weary unit, until a cabin emerged at the tree-lean, wooden, solitary, a silent sentinel of a man's chosen isolation. By the time Camila reached the porch, her crutches buckled, and she collapsed against the rough boards, her body shuddering with pain. Dust clung to her bruised arms, and the children's cries, small, desperate, echoed into the vast wilderness, too faint to summon help. The cabin door creaked open, slow and cautious. A man stepped out, his broad-shouldered frame filling the doorway. Cole, 32, a rancher who had long shunned company, stood with his shirt sleeves rolled to the elbows, his eyes narrowed as if to shield himself from the world. Solitude had molded him into something stern, self-contained, his face weathered by both sun and silence. But the sight before him, a crumpled woman and 2 frightened children, pierced the fortress of his isolation. The girl, Kayla, lifted her chin, her lip trembling but her voice steady. "Sir," she said, "if we clean your cabin, will you let Mama sleep here? She's too bruised to walk." Her small arm tightened around Camila's shoulder, as if her frail strength could hold her mother upright. The boy, Victor, stared up at Cole, his wide eyes clinging to the stranger's boot, seeking something solid in a world that felt unsteady. Cole stood silent, the wind rustling through the grass, the world holding its breath. The town's voices echoed in his mind, warnings, mockery, judgments that women like Camila carried only shame, that offering shelter to a widow or an outcast spelled ruin. Yet here she was, a mother barely able to breathe, and 2 children with courage born of desperation. "Get inside," he said at last, his voice low, rough from disuse. He bent and lifted Camila, her body stiffening at first, then easing as the warmth of his chest startled her. It had been years since anyone had carried her. The children followed, their small steps quick and anxious. Inside, the cabin was dim, thick with dust, its windows clouded from neglect. Cole laid Camila on a cot near the wall, and the children sprang into action, their small hands brushing cobwebs, stacking scattered boots, gathering tin cups. Their laughter, though timid, broke the cabin's heavy silence, a sound as foreign as sunlight in a storm. Cole leaned against a table, arms crossed, watching their frantic efforts with a mix of unease and reluctant wonder. Camila tried to sit up, wincing as her ribs protested. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice laced with shame, as if gratitude itself were a burden. She smoothed her tattered dress, trying to make herself smaller, but the bruises on her arms told a story of survival she couldn't hide. Cole saw her effort to conceal them and looked away, not out of indifference, but because the sight stirred something in him he wasn't ready to name. The hours passed, marked by the scrape of small hands cleaning what they could. Cole busied himself at the stove, scraping together a meal from his sparse supplies, beans, a scrap of meat, a pot of stew that filled the cabin with warmth. He watched the children eat, their heads bowed in quiet relief, and listened as Camila urged them to slow down, her strained voice carrying a gentle patience that seemed to calm the air. When she reached for her crutches, Cole moved without thinking, taking the broken sticks from her grasp. "These won't hold you another mile," he said, examining their cracks. "I'll mend them." She started to protest, but his steady gaze silenced her, not with kindness or pity, but with a quiet recognition of her resilience. He worked silently, fitting new nails, smoothing rough edges, while she watched from the cot. When he handed them back, stronger but still humble, her fingers brushed his for a fleeting moment. Neither spoke, but in that touch, something fragile began to take root. By dusk, Camilla stood on the porch, braced on her mended crutches, the sky ablaze with streaks of orange and red. Her children nestled close, and she whispered, almost to herself, "I'll leave at dawn if I must. I can't bring more shame upon another man's name." Cole, leaning in the doorway, heard her, his jaw tightening at the word shame. It struck a chord deep within him. Years ago, the town had mocked his failed courtship of a widow, their laughter driving him to this solitary life. He had chosen silence over ridicule, labor over connection. Now, Camilla's words echoed his own wounds. Night fell, the lantern casting soft light across the cabin's wooden walls. Camilla sat mending one of Cole's torn shirts, her hands moving with practiced care despite her pain. The children slept on a blanket nearby, their breaths a quiet lullaby. Cole sat across from her, elbows on his knees, watching the needle weave through fabric, the light catching on her scars. The silence between them swelled, heavy with unspoken truths. Neither gave voice to the confession forming in that quiet, but the world outside would not let them rest. At midday, riders passed along the trail, townsfolk whose glances cut sharper than knives. Their whispers drifted across the field, laced with scorn. She'd found another fool, he'd invited ruin. Camilla's face paled, her body curling inward as she turned from the window. "I shouldn't have stayed," she said, tears threatening. "You'll be marked like me." Cole's tension snapped. He stepped onto the porch as the riders slowed, their eyes heavy with judgment. The moment felt vast, the land's silence pressing in. He drew a breath and spoke, his voice steady, defiant. "She's here because I want her here. If any man has a quarrel, he'll take it with me." The riders muttered, exchanged glances, and rode on. Inside, Camilla trembled, torn between disbelief and fragile hope. Cole knelt before her, taking her scarred hands despite her instinct to pull away. "Camilla," he said, his voice low but firm, "I've been alone too long. I don't care what they say. Stay, not as a burden, but as the woman I choose." Her breath caught. She searched his face for cruelty or pity, but found only raw sincerity. Kayla and Victor pressed close, sensing the moment's weight, their small voices pleading, "Mama, say yes." Tears spilled down Camilla's cheeks, her defenses crumbling. "You don't know what I've carried," she whispered. "I'm no gift, Cole. I'm only trouble." He pressed her hand to his chest. "You're more strength than trouble, and I'd be a fool to let you walk away." She leaned forward, her forehead resting against his, and through her sobs whispered, "Yes." The world shifted. The porch became a beginning, not an exile. The children laughed, tumbling into the yard, their joy uncontainable. Camilla sagged into Cole's embrace, his arms a promise deeper than words. The horizon softened into gold, the land exhaling as if in relief. If you stood there, you'd feel it, the quiet truth that transformation comes not from battles won with force, but from mercy offered in small gestures. The broken don't just need saving, they teach the strong how to love. So, tell me, where in this wide world are you watching from?